Donor dependency. Let's not, there's so much of focus on that versus trying to solve society's issues. And then going into what are the cautions about youth movements. There are some youth movements already, or we have the potential to become over-bureaucratized, institutionalized, exclusionary, and even elitist. What we find is that there's also a thing called youth politics. When youth enter positions of power, they become gatekeepers who keep other young people out. I'm going to end off quickly. And I think we talk about this representation. Even in the health sector, we see how there's fragmented youth movements. And we all are doing excellent work within the health sector and across the health sector. So I leave the gathering with one recommendation today for the Global Youth Mobilization Fund. How do you support youth projects which are cross-sectoral or which span different sectors?
Thank you so much, Shakira. That's very interesting. I think we need to know more about the gatekeeper. That's very interesting, actually, and it has to be addressed. If any youth, takes a position, then must use it to support the youth. Then the next, I will ask Zainab. Zainab, can you describe for me how COVID-19, in your view, has impacted young people's organizing and activism?
Thank you for the question. So you all know that COVID-19
pressed on time. So
Hello, now you're ready?
I'm just speaking to Juno on the other side. Please give me one moment.
Okay.
So we're just waiting for
So
Paddy
hi,
from Unilever.
I'm got Zoom
I know
people on the other
He
side.
was busy until
1
he
second.
was backed up till 4
So
o'clock. So
there are
hopefully
participants,
he'll join
like I
us.
said, they're registered as participants. So we have to
have
wait
one
10
more
minutes.
webinar from 9 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. my time.
What time is it now for you?
It's 5. So I still have like, I have 5 more hours of work.
Sorry, they're all speaking on the other side so that you can hear it.
Spanish
Let me
language
write down.
webinar
It's easier
with
if I write down.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Patrick. Thank you for joining.
Oh, I got a bad echo. Is it me?
Hello, good morning. Well, good morning here in Panama. I'm Laura. I'll be supporting with the chat and the questions. Are you, Patrick and John, joining us as speakers?
Oh, John, you're on mute.
Yeah.
But yes, we are joining as speakers. I think John's facilitating the session, actually.
Yeah, in which case I may need to unmute my microphone. How's that? Yes. I'll be moderating, and Patrick is one of the speakers.
Okay, nice to meet you. You can see in the right side of your screen, there's this section that says mod, and that's a private chat for moderators. So you can use it like just for you to be chatting within yourselves. And I wanted to ask if you want me to be helping you with questions. Should I write it down on the chat, or do you want me to read them, or how do you want that to work?
So where will they, if someone sends a question in, Laura, where will it appear at the moment?
Sorry, again?
If someone writes in a question, where will it appear?
You will be able to see it either on the chat box or on the Q&A box.
Okay.
So I can help you out, like taking out the questions that are maybe repeating or that are the most suitable to the moment, something like that, and I can write them down in the chat box, but in the one of moderators, so you can read it from there.
Yeah, that would be great.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And we also have James here helping out with YouTube. So maybe you can also do that, James.
Yep. Hi everybody. So I'm monitoring the same chats on YouTube. So if there are any questions on there, I will copy and paste them into the Q&A box on here. They're all watching the same stream, but obviously you guys can't see the YouTube chat, so I'll just copy and paste them into here so you can see them.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Paddy and Dr. Guy, you haven't met yet, so I can introduce you for the first time.
Hi there, Dr. Guy. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. You're from Unilever, right?
I'm from Unilever, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. You have some very interesting projects that we were talking about last time. So.
Okay, excellent.
And Laura, Andrew is the other panelist, and he was just we were on a separate Zoom call, so hopefully with Bethel, who I think you've been speaking to, so hopefully
he'll make it.
He's definitely here and looking sharp. So.
Okay, so you can see the countdown below your screens. We start in 2 minutes, and it will go automatically live. So John, you can start when we go down to 0.
Okay, where is the countdown?
In the right corner. Right corner.
I
see
it. You see it?
I see it.
Oh, there. Yeah. Okay, got you. Yeah. It's in the dark blue against the black.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Helping very much. And you can also encourage people anytime to write in the chat, to use the Q&A questions, and also we have reactions below the screen. So it's a good thing to be motivating people.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay, so Bethel's just sent a message. Bethel's just sent a message saying she's helping Andrew with the login. So hopefully we'll see him within 1 minute and 16 seconds.
Hi,
Hi everyone. Just checking in.
For one.
Perfect. Okay. Just let me know if you have some issues and we'll get our tech team involved. Thanks for your patience with this today. We're having some technical problems across the board, so I appreciate your flexibility and your
no problem.
You being here. So thank you so much.
Hi guys,
we're excited about this session.
Hi Eve.
Hi, is everyone's mic and camera working?
Yeah, we're just waiting on the final panelist. He's hopefully joining us from Zoom.
Okay, great. All right.
But we go live automatically, do it 25 seconds.
Yeah, it's gonna go down and it'll go live.
And Guy, Dr. Guy, you're on mute, just so you know. You're still on mute.
If you hit the little
Comes
mic
red,
icon.
yes.
There you go.
Yes, I'm just okay. Here we go.
Enjoy.
Thank you. Hello, I think we are live. I'm gonna take this as us being live. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining. My name is John Hales. I'm the Business and Climate Director for Project Everyone. We are a non-profit communications agency that is aiming to make the UN's Sustainable Development Goals famous, because we want to drive awareness and action and accountability for the 17 goals. So delighted to be here today. We have a wonderful panel joining us. Well, we have 2 of 3 wonderful panelists joining us, and we're hoping the third will join us very soon. But I'd like to introduce Dr. Gaia Gamawage. Dr. Gaia is the head of learning and capacity development for WHO Health Emergencies, and also the lead for strategy at WHO Academy. Paddy Hull is the VP Future of Work for Unilever, and hopefully joining us very shortly is Andrew Tangang. And Andrew is the member of the Youth Power Panel, and also he's a monitoring and evaluation consultant for a group called Local Youth Corner in Cameroon, and he'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. So while we wait for Andrew to join us, what I thought would be a fantastic way to start would be if you could, I would like to invite you to give us a little brief background as to your career to this point and how you arrived at where you have arrived, because I know that it's a little bit of a windy path. So Dr. Gaia, I'd like to invite you to go first, if you would.
Thank you very much, John. Hi, everybody who's joining. When you invite older people to talk, they can't give you a brief career pathway, but I'll do my best. I actually don't have a straightforward career pathway. I started my life as a journalist. Then I went to med school. I became a doctor. I was a clinical practitioner. I got really fed up of people coming and presenting with the same illness again and again, and moved into the area of public health. I didn't even know it was called that. I was a junior lecturer in university, head of community development in an NGO that worked in 15,000 villages, worked for Save the Children, UK and Norway. And I had this it was a very difficult time in my country, in Sri Lanka, and being an activist, I came under threat. My children were threatened. I was threatened, received a hand grenade in my office. So I really just wrote to the 5 or 6 people I knew around the world and said, if anybody wants to give me a job, this is a good time. And the World Health Organization responded. I joined 20 years ago as a training officer for health, emergency and humanitarian action. I've been with WHO for 20 years, and in that time I've spent most of that time in health emergencies doing capacity building, but I did take 8 years out, and I was head of corporate communications for WHO during the previous pandemic. I've picked up a couple of other master's degrees outside medicine during that time. I've trained myself. I'm a professional coach. I speak a few languages. My mother tongue is Sinhalese. I grew up in the UK, so I feel English is my mother tongue too. I speak Chinese because I studied medicine in China in Chinese. I don't know what else can I tell you about myself. In my spare time, I actually do a lot of free coaching training for women in leadership and for youth, and I have a few sort of charitable things that I do. But I suppose that's me. I'm loud. I'm an activist. I believe in social justice. I work for the World Health Organization because we really fight for health for all, and it's that sense of equity and fairness that really keeps me in this organization. That's all for now.
That's such an amazing background. And Paddy, I apologize to come to you straight after that because it's a tough act to follow. But if you could tell us a little bit about how you arrived at where you are now.
Yeah, you really set me up there, John. Gaia, that's just an amazing background. We'd love to hear more about it at another time, as I'm sure everyone listening would love to. So I'm with Unilever. As John mentioned, I'm the VP Future of Work here, which also is quite a long stretch away from where I joined Unilever about 25 years ago. I actually started out in finance. I studied, accounting and economics as the sort of safe route. I thought should be able to get a job if I've got those things under my belt. And luckily picked up a job at Unilever, one of the biggest fast-moving consumer goods companies in the world. So I thought, okay, I'm set now. And then a couple of years after joining in finance, I realized that whilst numbers were interesting, I was far more interested in people and actually in our sales organization. I thought it was really fascinating how the science behind how we were placing products on shelves in stores, helping people to make decisions about whether they buy our product or not. I saw a presentation on that when I was sitting in on a finance seminar, and I thought I've got to get into that area of the business. And fortunately, I had some connections there, a bit like Guy. I made some calls and said, wouldn't someone like to hire me in the sales team? And fortunately, a few people said yes. Joined the sales function in Unilever for a while. And again, loved that. Loved motivating our sales force and organizing training sessions for them. And more, I realized actually what I really enjoy here is not so much the sales part, but the motivating, the training, the inspiring teams. And so that led to a journey towards leadership development and training, and then moved into the HR side of Unilever. And I've been fortunate to travel around the world with Unilever. I'm currently working in the UK. I'm originally from South Africa, though, so my formative years were in the South African business, but also spent a few years in China. Although I don't think my Mandarin's probably as good as Gaia's. I learned more sort of taxi Chinese. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to really learn it properly. But it was a fascinating experience being in that different culture and learning that. And I've always been fascinated about trying to discover a place or a person from who they are, on the ground, rather than from just reading about it. That's always been a passion of mine. And that's a little bit of why I've ended up in this future of work role. I've just been passionate about trying to figure out how can we prepare as a big organization like Unilever, where we have 150,000 people working for us in 190 countries across the world. How can we better prepare our workforce and our broader ecosystem for this future of work that can seem quite scary for some when we hear about the robots coming to take our jobs? I'd far rather be inspiring people about the opportunities and helping people train and get prepared for that. So that's a little bit about me, John. As Gaia said, when you ask someone old to give an intro, it's never too short.
Also, fascinating background that I would love to dig into another time as well. And Andrew, fantastic to see you. So glad you could join. We've just had a little introduction from Dr. Gaia and Paddy about how they arrived at where they are now. So it would be great if you could just give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and how you came to do what you're doing now. And you're on mute, by the way. It's there should be a little button bottom right of your screen. I always think that after a year of this, we would all be better, but I experience this on myself and colleagues every day.
Okay, I think can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we've gotten too used to Zoom so much so that it gets a little bit complicated navigating all over these other platforms. On Zoom, you just click on the speaker option and it moves. Okay, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, John. My name is Tangang Andrew. I'm from Cameroon. I'm a member of the Youth Power Panel. It's a group of 12 young people from around the world who came together to use their energy and advocacy power to push ahead with efforts on the Sustainable Development Goals. And we have been supported by, of course, Unilever and Project Everyone on this particular project where we are running youth power hacks in different parts of the world. So aside from that, I'm also a research student in a PhD student in local government studies at the University of Birmingham. I'm there as a Sean Johnson Memorial Scholar, funded by the Litharium Trust. I think Unilever should be quite versed with the Litharium Trust. Yeah, so I also work in Cameroon as a youth leader, a youth worker. I work with Local Youth Corner Cameroon as a monitoring and evaluation consultant. And during the COVID pandemic, we came up with an initiative, the One Person, One Hand Sanitizer campaign, where we produce homemade hand sanitizers and actually distributed in communities around the country. We were actually able to touch all the 10 regions of Cameroon. We went to communities where they did not have access to personal protective equipment. We were able to involve inmates. Inmates were able to make their own protective preventive equipment, and we're able to mobilize some ex-inmates, and we're able to bring in many young people who, as a result of COVID and the lockdown, they had nothing doing home. They work with us as volunteers. So I think from the work we're able to do, UNESCO Cameroon contacted Local Youth Corner to actually commission a research on the future of work. What young people in Cameroon think about the future of work. So I've been able to do a little bit of work around this area, and it also gave us a platform to zoom into the ideas of young people, how they see the future of work post the COVID period. So I'm really happy to share this panel with eminent persons and elderly persons. And I think in Africa, when you have the opportunity to sit amongst elders, they say a child who washes his hands clean has actually gained the opportunity to sit and talk with elders. So to me, it's the highest of honors and the greatest of responsibilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And thank you all. Well, there's some incredible stories there. Just a reminder to anyone, by the way, that you can put your questions in the chat at any time. We should have a little bit of time at the end. I'm going to come to Dr. Gaia because when you were telling that story, there are so many kind of twists and turns to it. And I know from my experience of ending up where I am via a very windy route as well, and always thinking that was a drawback and that was something that I needed to fix. And I know for you, you see it as an advantage actually. And could you talk a little bit about that, about how it's an advantage both to the individual and also to the organization that they join?
I think there's only one person on the planet who's not happy with my career pathway, and that's my mother, because she finds it difficult to explain to her friend why her doctor daughter is not seeing patients. But to be really serious, I think in a way I was ahead of my time, because as a doctor, there is a clear path, right? So you come in, there are different levels of seniority, continuing medical education. And in a way, a medical student can see how they will be like in 20, 30 years. But I think what I did is what most people are doing now. More and more we're seeing people with less loyalty to a profession or a career or an organization, but really pursuing their own path, seeing what really appeals to them. For me, at the World Health Organization, Paddy, we have so few people. We are responsible for World Health. We only have about 7,000 people, and they're distributed around 150 countries. Some of our country offices are very small, and you can see people in WHO, they came as technical experts, medical doctors, but really high at the top of their field. But what we're finding now is people like myself who've had many different experiences. Their learning path, their education path is quite diverse. I have medicine, international policy, public health, coaching, training. So this brings growth for yourself, but also growth for your organization. If I look at the places I've lived in, I spent 10 years in China, 10 years in the UK. I've done missions to about 60 countries, right? So all of this is an asset you bring to yourself and to your organization and to the course that your organization is pursuing. So I really believe this is, I think I was ahead of the curve, because my peers are really getting a lot of money being great doctors. But I've had this amazing career where every day I am able to learn and I'm able to reinvent myself, if you like. So I really do. In WHO for the last 20 years, every job I've had has been a job that I've created because I've advocated and said, look, you need this here. We need this here. So I am usually the first incumbent of the jobs I've had. So this is really amazing. And that speaks to a quality that we see in young people: creativity, flexibility, searching for belonging, meaning, being aligned to a cause. So I think this whole, in the corporate world and in the public health organizations, we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion. There's all of these buzzwords. But what does this mean? Diversity is everything different that we bring, right, to work, to life. But it's that the principle of equity and the feeling of being included that really allows you to grow and the organization to harness what you have. You see lots of people will say, oh, people are the biggest asset of the organization, but they don't behave that way. And you really have to fight for that because the catchphrases are very, a lot of leaders are very eloquent with that, but they're not acting on it. They're saying it, but they're not acting on it. So I believe diversity. So I have about 30 people. We're from about 20, 25 different countries. I now manage virtual teams from West Coast America to Sydney, Australia. So it's crazy, but it's hard work, but it is very enriching. And it teaches you to address the enculturation, the programming that you've had in a particular culture. So I think, there's discipline diversity, geographic diversity, gender, sexual orientation, and age, the mixing of young and older people, the different generations. So this is really great, but not everybody knows how to harness the power of that. And a lot of people respond with fear of the difference that we bring. It's a very long-winded winded way of saying what I wanted to say.
No, not at all. I think it would be good to bring Paddy in at this point because Unilever obviously has 150,000 employees in multiple locations across the world. And that idea, Dr. Gaia, of you being, and I agree with you, ahead of the curve in terms of, following your heart and your passion and not necessarily being tied to a single job. And we've had the kind of stable 9-to-5 job, and increasingly we're seeing an increase in the gig economy. And you might have to sacrifice stability for and security for flexibility. How do Unilever see that, Paddy? And have you been working on? Well, I know you have been working on kind of some models which sit somewhere between those two.
Absolutely, John. I resonate a lot with what Dr. Guy is saying, that in the future of work, the successful, so we call it employees or people in the workplace, are going to be those who really can handle diversity in all its shapes and forms. Equity, diversity, and inclusion, they just roll off the tongue, but it is so much more complex than just those three words. And I think we've recognized as an organization, we've been doing a lot of looking at the trends affecting work, the workforce and workplace. And you mentioned some of them, John. There's this increasing rise in the gig economy. People do need flexibility. They want it. They're going after it, even though it has this dark side, around the 0-hour contracts and lack of security. But there's that increasing rise, this desire for more flexibility. And we often talk about how this 40-hour, 40-week, 40-year employment setup is due a revamp. We've been in this construct since the Victorian era almost, and surely now with automation and technology and all of that, it should be benefiting us, and we should be moving into a different way of working. So we're looking at that. We're looking also at the rise of sort of the 100-year life. I don't know if any of you've read that book, but it's a fascinating book that, we all thought that you graduate at 21, you then do your job and retire, and that's it. And actually, there's a third and fourth act probably that we need to be preparing for. And that constant reinvention and giving yourself the opportunity to gather new experiences is just going to be so important to make sure that we can, sustain that period of time. And then for us in Unilever as well, we see the rise of different ways of working. A lot of people are talking about agile, this methodology where jobs are broken down into tasks and projects, and teams form and reform and come together. So looking at all of these things, we thought actually the time is ripe now for a new employment model, and we created something called UWork. And the idea with UWork is that it bridges this gap between the gig economy, which is all about flexibility but no security, as you said, and then the sort of full-time work job, which is lots of security but no flexibility. You're stuck sort of 9 to 5. So with UWorkers, they remain Unilever employees, but they don't have a job title anymore. So we get rid of the construct of the job. They just work on assignment at Unilever. They get a guaranteed monthly retainer, though, so they get a security net, and they get the benefits that a Unilever employee gets. But then after that, they just get the pay for the assignments that they work on. And they have the flexibility to work on a side hustle and set up their own business, or care for an aging parent, or even children, or ease into retirement, because they might not want to fully retire immediately. So this will help people stay employed for longer. So I think if I was preparing now for the future of work, a young person entering the world of work, I'd be looking for employers that are thinking in this way and giving those sorts of opportunities, because the world of work is no longer going to be this just standard 9 to 5 job anymore. We actually also just launched the 4-day week in New Zealand, and the whole company is like rooting for them and hoping that it'll be a successful pilot, and so the rest of us can also adopt a 4-day week. But who knows? That could be the way of the future.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paddy. And when we talk about kind of the disruption that comes with a pandemic, and Andrew, is something we've spoken about before, is obviously there has been a huge kind of technological boom which was on its way anyway, which has been accelerated. We've all been forced to work from home, and there's clearly the working from home aspect to that, but then there's also the food delivery and all the other kind of elements that come with it. I know you're quite passionate about innovation and entrepreneurship that comes out of times like this. Have you seen examples of that? And kind of, would you have advice for young people that are looking to strike out on their own and be more innovative and entrepreneurial and take advantage of the crisis in that sense?
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. One thing I noticed actually with COVID was that every system that was rejecting technology in the past, notice that it's either you go online or you're dead, or you go offline completely, or nobody recognizes you. And you saw we noticed a system in which governments and systems that were not ready started scrambling to get everything online. So as a result, the main purpose at that time was to save the education of children, both from basic to higher education level. Now, in Cameroon, most of our universities went online. Teachers who were never trained in, or who had always rejected technology, started giving lessons online. And interestingly, students no longer stayed with doing the courses they were used to doing in their classrooms online. They started searching for other side courses online that would actually help them. Good enough, some of the platforms became free in order to enable people to acquire skills. So as a result, many young people, of course, those who are quite sharp, they were quick enough to get into some of these courses, do these courses online, and they did not end up doing these courses online. They actually look for the opportunity to volunteer in organizations that were working on COVID-related initiatives. So it's something that it started with, you go online to study. But when people got online to study, they did not just study the courses they wanted to study, they actually search for other opportunities to train themselves, to acquire skills, and to implement what they have learned online on the ground. So it is good we are going that direction, but it's not just the formal education too that was affected, because as a result of COVID, young people are already thinking of what happens post COVID. If COVID ends today, will we just continue online? That's actually the level at which we find ourselves now, because trust me, some systems are still not completely ready to welcome the online fully. And another thing we need to understand is that some groups of people were really affected during the COVID period. Now, I'll take the case of persons with disabilities, and especially with young girls and women. If you come to a context like Cameroon, most often house chores are done by girls. Now, when you find yourself, you get up in the morning and you are home all day, there's a tendency for the young girl to spend most of her time working rather than studying. So as a result of that, it's more disadvantageous to them than the young boys. True, the trend is a little bit smaller, but it is something that we actually notice a lot during the COVID period. And again, for those for those young people who could not have access to the internet to follow up their lessons, it also generated a certain level of anxiety, and as a result, in the process, mental health issues, because they were concerned: what happens to my education? What happens to my future? So you see that to an extent, it actually changed the paradigm, the shift online, but also it created a certain level of inequality where people who don't have access to the online did not really gain, except for those who took the opportunity to actually volunteer in organizations, and they were able to learn skills which they never knew they could do before. For example, a young person who decided to engage in, say, working on a project like the one person, one hand sanitizer project, already has an opening into project management, and in the process you are able to not just acquire skills of writing projects but also evaluating projects. In the future, that young person can be able to evaluate policies, for example, both from the local level to the national level. So I think those are some of the integrated changes that preparing young people for the workplace that came as a result of the change in dynamics.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. I'm gonna bring in. We've got a lot of questions coming in through the chat, so I'm going to try and integrate them as much as I can. Dr. Kaya, I'm going to come back to you. There's a question here that I think you could speak to, which is if you could pinpoint 3 skills that every young person entering the current workforce should have, what would they be? And I'll just kind of add to that. And I know that when we talk about soft skills, we're thinking of them, or we historically have thought of them as a sort of nice to have and not essential to the workforce. And I know that was, or at least I have a sense that was shifting before the pandemic, and perhaps has been accelerated. So what would you say would be those 3 skills, and your view on the soft skills?
Well, I think we need to face the hard truth about soft skills. It's not easy. It's not in most academic curricula. And in a way, we are losing some of those soft skills with the proliferation of technology, particularly social skills. So I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to talk about 3 categories of skill, if I may, because it's very difficult to pinpoint 3. I think, I mean, there's a lot of thinking around this. Of course, literacy skills. You have to be able to read, write, but your literacy goes beyond that. It goes to scientific literacy. Right? How do you understand what is COVID? Is the vaccine safe? So understanding science in everyday life, but also ICT, communication, technology literacy is going to be very important. So all of the different literacies, and of course, increasingly, political, cultural literacy. So that's basic, if you like. On top of that, I think it's what we call learning skills. Right? So a learning mindset is going to be extremely important, because we have to be adaptable, flexible. It's not just our employers have to be adaptable and flexible. We have to, because of the way the world is evolving. So critical thinking, I think most people agree that critical thinking is an important skill to have in the learning skills. Creativity, innovation, creativity, collaboration skills, and of course communication skills. I mean, it's as old as the hills. It's why we are human. We know how to communicate. So literacy skills, learning skills, and the third category is what we call life skills or personal attributes. You know, flexibility, leadership, initiative, productivity, and the most important, because many people say we are not only in the fourth industrial revolution, but we are in a social age, which is powered by interconnectivity. So what are the social skills that we need to lead, to manage, to be employees, to be citizens, to be within a community? So social skills in this fourth industrial revolution could look very different from communication and social skills that we had in the past. So I would say 3 categories. You can make it 4 or 5, but it's around learning, it's around basic literacy, and it's around life skills, including social skills and communication and others.
And Paddy, does that, so Unilever just came out with this incredible commitment to equip 10 million young people by 2030 with essential skills for the workplace as it develops. Does that chime with you, how Dr. Gaia was describing it? Are they the kind of essential skills that you have also identified? And can you talk us through kind of the programs that entails?
Yes, John. So it chimes beautifully with what Dr. Gaia has said, actually. So we've identified also, I guess, 4 broad categories of what we call 21st century skills. So it's exactly the themes Dr. Gaia spoke about: critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. And that links to all the interconnectivity and things that Dr. Gaia was talking about. So those are the 4 kind of big headline soft skill areas that we're working on, together with some vocational skills. Yeah, our business is all about marketing and sales. And so we're looking at providing opportunities for young people to learn more about sales, and frontline sales, being on the ground, brand activations. How do we, run Dove self-esteem workshops or Lifebuoy hand washing workshops? We need people for that. And then also the area of data and analytics and digital marketing, which are definitely big growing areas within our organization. And I think as we made this commitment to around 10 million young people, we obviously are hoping it'll be a lot more, but we wanted to commit at least publicly that we want to help 10 million young people gain essential skills to make them more employable. I've seen a lot in the chat about the impact of COVID, and we recognize that as well, particularly on young people who have been most hit in some of the most vulnerable sectors, especially the service industry that employs a lot of young people. So we wanted to make a commitment to try and help build that employability. And I think what's unique about Unilever, there are a lot of organizations that do this, and they do it very well, building future fit skills. The one thing that we wanted to do, and Andrew alluded to it, we want to try and bring together the superpower of young people, which is purpose and activism, and combine that with skills, because we believe when we bring those 2 together, we can change the world. So the program that we're developing, and it's not live yet, we're piloting it in South Africa at the moment. It's called Level Up. It's a program that provides young people with opportunities to get certifications on skills online, a bit like what Andrew was talking about in Cameroon, but then also provides opportunities for volunteering. The OECD did research that people who engage in volunteering activities as well are far more likely to then find a path into employment than those who aren't. So we're thinking if we can combine some skills training, some volunteering, together with some work experience opportunities, then we can give people the best chance of a level up to make you more employable. And we're in discussions, it's still early stage, but with a number of partners to see how we can digitally badge CVs of people who've gone through this sort of process, and also looking at partnerships with other organizations, because we just don't want to do this on our own. We think, if we've got more partners, more organizations doing the same thing, we can help benefit more people. So that's a journey we're on.
Fantastic. And there's a question here that Andrew, I think you might be able to speak to. So the question is there anything universities can do to ease students' adaptation to this neo-industrial world? And I know, and just to frame that, I know that you have done quite a lot of policy and advocacy work, and we talked about entrepreneurship, we talked about innovation, and what are the kind of surrounding pieces that need to be in place in order to foster that innovation?
Yeah, okay. Thank you. What I think is so far, especially in the case of Africa, our universities have been giving a lot of, they have been engaged in giving a lot of information. They tend to teach us certain things that are not very relevant and that did not really tie with the society. The world, as Dr. Guy and Patrick have already indicated, the world is really fast changing, and young people are also changing with the world. But the environment, we need to create an environment for young people to adapt whatever they have learned. Each time we talk of creativity, many people think creativity is just in the sciences. Yes, it's easy to actually do something in the sciences, but we should be very careful. Creativity also cuts across, even in the administrative sciences. There's creativity in the office, there's creativity everywhere. And what I think we should do is universities need to actually engage with both the public sector and the private sector. And when we talk of private sector, there's a tendency to always minimize those very little organizations you find in local communities. Whereas if young people are able to build those little organizations in small communities, neighborhood organizations, village development committees, and use those organizations to actually create impact at that level, the boomerang effect will be incredible. So it's all about universities valuing the environment in which young people find themselves, and each time a young person creates something which is interesting, make good use of it. Take that young person, portray the young person, and find ways to develop the young person's capacity. When COVID started, for example, a young man in Cameroon actually created a water dispenser machine that you don't need to touch. All you need to do is to bring your glass beside the dispenser, and it gives you water. So one person is in charge of filling the dispenser machine, and another, all you need to do is just bring it through a sensor, it gives you water. The young person, that young man was still in secondary school. Lately, young people in Cameroon have made planes and they make those planes to fly. But it ends at the level of portraying them on social media and people will clap. Then what happens? There's no follow-up. And all of these young people are still in secondary school, mind you. So we're expecting universities to actually come up and say, okay, these are talents that we need to develop. If we don't give these young people the capacity to, or the opportunities to develop, what happens is they will find those opportunities in different countries, and in the end will remain behind and say brain drain. It's not brain drain. We actually pushed that brain away. So universities actually need to be very open and give young persons, I mean, the emphasis should not be on learning and learning and learning to repeat in exams, or even if we want to focus on exams, the emphasis should be on stimulating the creativity of young people in those examinations. If you are studying accounting, from the first year, we give you a task to actually go to small meeting houses and try as much as possible to put their account records in place. If at the end of the year we can grade you just on that particular aspect of accounting, you have changed not just your own life in terms of learning, but you have changed how a group is being structured to arrange their accounting, and it should cut across. We should actually mainstream that both in the administrative sciences, in the technical sciences, fashion, agriculture, ICT, ECT.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrew. I think there's so much there that we could talk about. I'm conscious we have about 7 minutes left, so I want to try and get a couple more questions. There's a lot of questions coming in, and quite a few around AI. Patty, I want to ask you about this, because presumably a company the size of Unilever must be thinking about AI and those technologies, and there seems to be quite a lot of uncertainty out there as to how they will disrupt the labor market. Is that something that you are thinking about, and how can people protect themselves against that, or what are the ways for them to make sure that they remain kind of relevant within the workplace?
I think, yeah, that's a great question, John. And I think I want to start off by saying, yeah, that our view is that we and a number of different corporates all moving to this place of using AI to augment human decision making, but not make the decisions. And so, and I think that's going to be a growing trend, that we may use it to help with decision making, but not, it's definitely not going to be the final arbiter, and that will always be a human interaction. And I think that's the main point to raise with this, that AI is not just going to take away all jobs and all that. In more cases than not, it's going to augment or add rather than take away. The other thing about AI is, again, there's been a strong movement to ensure that it is removing bias and that sort of thing. In fact, we recently did an experiment in Unilever where we used AI to help our people think about different jobs that might be available for them. And one thing that came out of it was that when we asked people to list the skills that they have, on average, they wrote down about 11 skills. But when the AI inferred what skills they've got based on their sort of job descriptions and things in their CVs, it came up with on average 34 skills. So actually it helped people expand their possibilities in terms of what other work they could do by then looking at skill adjacencies. So there's lots of opportunities where AI can actually help and actually remove bias. We also found that people from sort of previously disadvantaged groups tended to underrepresent their skills even more. So this is a way for AI to help remove bias rather than continue contributing to natural human bias. So let's not all just be scared about AI. There's lots of good that can come from it if we use it in the right way. The other quick point that I just want to make is we've also, to Dr. Guy's point earlier, and Andrew's made that point, that we still believe humans especially have this unique capacity that we are powered by purpose and passion. You know, the other thing we've seen is the rise of the passion economy and people, you know, doing their side hustles and investing lots of time and energy in creating amazing things for, you know, not much income and that sort of thing. You know, and AI is never going to kind of do that or take that away. And I think as long as we focus on that, I saw there was a question, should you focus on a job that'll pay more but is not your passion, or when they'll pay less? I always say go for your passion. Follow your purpose and your passion. The last thing you want to be is in a dead-end job where you've got no energy for it and you don't feel like getting out of bed in the morning. And I do still think if you follow that purpose and passion, let that guide your career, then you've got nothing to fear from automation and all this sort of stuff, because you'll always be able to operate at a different level. So yeah, those are a few thoughts there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paddy. And and Dr. Guy, just your thoughts as well. I know someone mentioned around AI and the medical profession and doctors, and I know within the health industry, we've seen some big kind of innovations coming within the technological space, and you start to see people wearing wearables and being able to check their much more personalized medicine and individual medicine through technology. So is that something that you see as something that can actually bring benefits?
I think it can. I think AI, like any technology, is a tool, right? It depends how we use it, what we use it for. So already AI can read an X-ray better than a doctor. Because why? It has so many data points. So you have data, you have computing power, and they have more accuracy than humans. But AI will never replace what is done with that analysis, how a person is counseled and treated. So there are lots of predictions as to which industries and which jobs in which industries will continue to grow, which will continue to shrink. And I think the rule of thumb is what requires an essentially human analysis, passion, empathy, kindness, and this complex decision making, right? It will continue, and particularly in the health field, there's going to be a lot of reskilling and upskilling, but I don't think there's going to be redundancy. Well, first of all, millions of people don't have access to healthcare today. We are by millions, 18 million short of health workers to reach universal health coverage. I mean, this is going to grow, and biotech and information technology is going to revolutionize health. People are going to be empowered because they have wearables and they can monitor their health. But you still have to connect the dots. Just because I wear an Apple Watch, it doesn't mean I'm healthier today, right? It just means I have some data points. But behavioral change, motivation, environment, policy, laws, all of this determine what we eat, how we interact with other people. So I think, it's one more thing to embrace. I mean, in every generation, there are big changes, and we think, the world will change. Yes, it will change, but there are many questions about, what professions. I think healthcare is a growth industry. With 3D printing, maybe, building construction will contract, but managerial jobs, decision-making jobs will still increase. So again, it's not a degree-based, diploma-based, education-based career. In addition to formal education, these skills, which you can find and reveal themselves and develop through volunteering, through trying out new avenues. So skills was a very small part of our CV when we were young, but I think now it's become really, really important. And the demonstration of skill, not the demonstration of a certificate, is going to be very, very important now.
Thank you, Dr. Tara. I think we're about to be kicked off. So thank you so much, everybody. Hopefully we haven't been kicked off and we're still on for a second, but thank you so much for all of the questions that came in. I hope that we managed to answer a few of them, and great that there was so much engagement. And thank you so much to all the panelists for your fantastic contributions. Thanks all.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah, lovely meeting you too, Dr. Guy. Yeah, sorry, I was trying to find the unmute again. Yeah. Yeah, go well. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening.
Yes.
Whereabouts are you based?
I'm in Geneva, Switzerland,
Okay.
but I have another webinar now. So
Okay, all right. Good luck.
Love to meet you. I hope our paths cross again.
Absolutely.
Bye,
Thanks very much. Bye.